This morning I'm going to be going around my neighborhood and picking up trash, and the reason I'm going to be doing this is littering is a huge problem I feel, and I've littered in the past. So one, I'm going to do it to kind of as a retribution to society, and also I'm going to do it to maybe see if I can inspire other people to go pick up trash around their neighborhood. I'm going to start small. I'm just going to go right up and down my neighborhood and pick up trash, on the street, cigarette butts on the street. I'm going to try to be as detailed as possible. I'm not going to act like it's a chore. I'm just going to have fun and maybe even see if I can get somebody else to help me pick up trash. I asked my mom and she just got up and all that. But we're also going to be reflecting on Pascal's thoughts and minor works. That's the actual collection of books. But it comes from the Harvard Classics. And so if you see in the front of this book, it says Veritas. And this camera, I don't think exactly zooms very well, so you may not be able to see it. But what Veritas means in Latin is truth. And it's very important for in a situation for you to seek the truth, not the right and wrong of a situation. And a lot of the times I feel that when people get into arguments, they're really just trying to see who's right and who's wrong, not trying to actually analytically look at the situation for what it is, and then see what the truth is and make a change upon that because we're not willing to change. So we're just going to review a certain part, the beginning part of this book. It's called Thoughts on Mind and Style, and I'll show you this side of the book. It'll be hard to do it while holding this. Pascal, Thoughts and Minor Works, Veritas, the Harvard Classics. And as we read this, I am going to reflect on it with you because it is rather hard to understand. This is an introductory note. I've read this and I'm just going to kind of summarize it just for the sake of the video. So, Pascal was born in Clermont. I really am not sure. I think that's Italy or something. It's kind of sad that I seem to be uninformed, but he was born June 19th, 1623, and the reason I feel that's important is just so you understand the time era. This, Pascal's Thoughts, is known as a religious classic. So not only was he a mathematician, he's known for Pascal's triangle and all of that, but this book is also, his thoughts are referred to as religious classics, and a lot of them aren't, as we read, you'll see they're not even really religious, they're just really informative. So we're going to read Pascal's Thoughts, section 1, Thoughts on Mind and Style, and we're going to kind of reflect on this as we go. The difference between the mathematical and intuitive mind, in the one the principles are palpable. And so what this means is, if you're a mathematical mind, you're able to grasp things very rigidly, like in calculations. You're able to understand that E equals mc squared is energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. And so when you're able to look at an atom, you can also therefore then see it as energy, because matter is energy and energy is matter due to E equals mc squared equation. And so that's kind of a greater scale of things. So I'm going to read this and then reflect on it. It may be hard for you to see it, and I'm looking at it through a little screen right now, so I can't really tell. The difference between the mathematical mind and the intuitive mind. In the one, the principles are palpable but removed from ordinary use, so that for want of habit it is difficult to turn one's mind in that direction. But if one turns it thither ever so little, one sees the principles fully, unless one must have a quite inaccurate mind who reasons wrongly from principles so plain that it is almost impossible they should escape notice. And I'm going to kind of reflect on that, just to help you understand that. He's saying, in the mathematical mind, the principles are very easy to grasp. Like, imagine an equation. In math class, you would get an equation, and then you would find out what goes into that equation, and then you plug it in. But that's removed from ordinary use. In everyday life, you wouldn't, calculate the amount of torque that your engine puts out to see how hard you would push on the pedal or stuff like that. So it's removed from ordinary use. So that for want of habit, it is difficult to turn one's mind in that direction. So he's kind of saying it's hard for you to look at things like that just in everyday life because it's removed from ordinary use. But if you turn it there ever so little, or ever so slightly start looking at things mathematically and looking at the overall numerical importance of things, you'll begin to see. And he says one sees these principles fully, and I'd have to say a lot of these insights, have led me to some crazy, just realizations about the world around me. And he also adds, one must have quite an inaccurate mind who reasons wrongly from principles so plain that it is almost impossible they escape notice. So he's saying, if you're not able to deduce correctly, your mind is inaccurate because you're not making the right conclusions, or you're not picking up the right information because of maybe biasness or things like that. And he goes on to talk about the intuitive mind. But in the intuitive mind, the principles are found in common use and are before the eyes of everybody, so everybody can see. It's just everyday things, and if you're intuitive, you're able to pick up on them. So that's what he's saying in that. One has only to look, and no effort is necessary. It is only a question of good eyesight, but it must be good, for the principles are so subtle and so numerous that it is almost impossible but that some escape notice. Now the omission of one principle leads to error, thus one must have very clear sight to see all the principles, and in the next place an accurate mind not to draw false deductions from known principles. So he's saying, in an intuitive mind, yes, the things are before everybody, but you must have good eyesight to be able to see them, because if you get one wrong, then you're gonna come to the wrong conclusion, and it's very important that you get all of them right. And that's what he's saying right here. Now the omission of one principle leads to error, thus one must have very clear sight to see all the principles, and in the next place an accurate mind not to draw false deductions from known principles. So not only must you pick up all the principles correctly, you must have an accurate mind to be able to get the correct deductions from this principle. So he then goes on to say, all mathematicians would then be intuitive if they had clear sight, for they do not reason incorrectly from principles known to them, and intuitive minds would then be mathematical if they could turn their eyes to principles of mathematics to which they are unused. So if mathematicians could have clear sight instead of looking at things so rigidly, they would be able to become intuitive, and if the intuitive were able to look at things through the rigidness of equations and stuff like that, then they would eventually become mathematical. He then goes on to say, is the reason, therefore, that some intuitive minds are not mathematical is that they cannot at all turn their attention to principles of mathematics. But the reason that mathematicians are not intuitive is that they do not see what is... It's hard to turn in these gloves. They do not see what is before them. And that, accustomed to the exact and plain principles of mathematics and not reasoning till they have well inspected and arranged their principles, they are lost in matters of intuition, where the principles do not allow such arrangement. They are scarcely seen. They are felt rather than seen. There is the greatest difficulty in making them felt by those who do not themselves perceive them. So he's saying the intuitive people cannot describe the deductions that they've made to the mathematicians because they're looking at things so rigidly, and the mathematicians can explain it to the intuitive because the intuitive don't look at things so rigidly. It seems to make sense, and it is a lot of words just to say that, but these principles are so fine and so numerous that a very delicate and very clear sense is needed to perceive them, and to judge rightly and justly when they are perceived, without for the most part being able to demonstrate them in order as in mathematics, because the principles are not known to us in the same way, and because it would be an endless matter to undertake it. We must see the matter at once, at one glance, and not by the process of reasoning, at least to a certain degree. And thus it is rare that mathematicians are intuitive, and that men of intuition are mathematicians, because mathematicians would wish to treat matters of intuition mathematically and make themselves ridiculous, wishing to begin with definitions, then with axioms, which is not the way to proceed in this kind of reasoning. Not that the mind does not do so, but it does so tactically, naturally, and without technical rules, for the expression of it is beyond all men, and only a few can feel it. Intuitive minds, on the contrary, being thus accustomed to judge at a single glance, are so astonished when they are presented with propositions of which they understand nothing, and the way to which is through definition and axiom so sterile, in which they are not accustomed to see thus in detail, and they are repelled and disheartened. I'm going to leave on this note, because it's so beautifully well written, and I do find it kind of comical. He says, but dull minds are never either intuitive or mathematical. And I want you to take that to heart, because if you ever become disheartened that, somebody who's making fun of you or something like that, just know that dull minds are neither intuitive or mathematical. And I'm going to reflect on this last part as well. He says, intuitive minds, on the contrary, being thus accustomed to judge at a single glance, are so astonished when they are presented with propositions and things of this nature. Uh, what I feel like he's saying is, because we're not taught to think for ourselves, when you look at a situation, you automatically will deduce. So a lot of us become intuitive rather than looking at a situation logically. And so he's saying, when a mathematician comes at you and he's saying, it's so simple, look at this equation, you look at the equation and you say, oh my gosh, math, oh my gosh, I have to figure out how to do this. It's thinking, it's work, you're not taught how to do it. So it then becomes extremely difficult. If you haven't fallen asleep by this, I wish you like, subscribe, comment. Any comments that you have, any further questions that you have, maybe further reflections, just let me know, and I can gladly anytime come to this book. Also, I don't have the entire collection of the Harvard classics. I picked this up in Paola at the, I think, Paola Square Emporium. I can't remember the exact term, but it was $22. Yeah, $22. But the wisdom that's held in this book and knowledge in this book is worth way more than $22. So if you want to go out and get this book yourself, I highly encourage you. And I highly encourage you just to get any book. Thank you. So I'm probably going to go start picking up trash around the neighborhood. And I'm also going to include the entire excerpt that I read today in the comments so that you can fully read it for yourself. I'll maybe try to link to a reference for you to be able to buy the book or further reflections on it. But I just want to introduce you to my cat, No Name. Her name is No Name to kind of get you to look at her for what she is, and just a being, not just a kitty, not anything like that. She's rather smart. I think she's full grown, but she just didn't get very big. I don't know what's up with that, but it's cute. Anyways, I'll have to go pick up trash in the neighborhood. So I've already gotten a little plastic bag full of trash. I also found a bouncy ball. I really like bouncy balls. Anyways, so I found like a huge collection of trash. So I think I got a bigger trash bag and I'm gonna go pick it up. It's actually like right across the street, hidden in some trees and stuff, so I just don't really feel that that's right. So I'm gonna go pick it up. So I went to that place and I got about a half a trash bag full in like a paint bucket. It's actually right over there, where that red Jeep is. I tried to knock on the door to ask them if I could get in their little side yard, but nobody answered, and I don't really feel like trespassing or getting in trouble for stuff like that. So I got about a half a trash bag full, another plastic bag full, and I'm just gonna go around the upper half of my neighborhood. That way I get my whole neighborhood today. Okay. Here's all the trash that I collected in my neighborhood. I'm keeping these little guys because glass bottles are just nice. Plastic cups, slowly the chemicals break down and it can be carcinogenic or causes cancer. So I honestly prefer to drink out of glass bottles and stuff like that. But look at this. All of this trash I gained today. This is just from that one spot that I told you guys about, which I didn't even fully clear. These two other bags were just found laying in the streets and in other things. So here I was thinking my neighborhood was surprisingly clean, but after further inspection, once I became conscientious of my neighborhood and the trash that was in it, I kind of realized that there's a lot of trash. So I kind of challenge you to go out in your neighborhood, just take a simple plastic Walmart bag and pick up as much trash as you can. Because if I can do this in maybe an hour and a half, what do you think you can do? Or you and your family? So I challenge you to go out today, just simply collect a little bit of trash in the neighborhood.